Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Bryant Balcom, here with publisher Andrew Jones, who is inside the Donald Tucker Center in Tallahassee, Florida. We are back for another edition of Three Things, this time following UNC's 96 to 85 win over Florida State, which the Tar Heels scored on over 67% of their offensive possessions. 6 guys finished in double figures, and 7 Tar Heels made 3 or more baskets. They've improved to 18-11 overall, 11-6 in ACC play. But before we dive into this, AJ, we're looking to give away free subscriptions to THI. How can our viewers
giving it away? We got a truckload of THI subscriptions we're giving away, and how you can get a free THI subscription is very simple. We have 3 platforms we're pushing right now. The one you're watching us on, which is YouTube. We're trying to get to 20,000 YouTube subscribers by the end of the basketball season. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so now. You will then enter into a pool to be randomly chosen to win free THI. Go over to Facebook. We're Tar Heel Illustrated. Do the same. We're looking to get to 12,000 followers. And also go to Twitter, X, whatever you call it. We're looking to get to 40,000. So follow us over there as well. We're giving out multiple 1-year subscriptions on for people that follow each platform. And YouTube, we're giving away 2-year subscriptions. So if you have not subscribed and follow us on those platforms, do so now, and you get THI for free. And guys, you only get a little bit on these videos that we have. We have a ton of information and inside information. A lot of inside information that we get because we're very close to the programs that we cover that you're only going to get on the boards. You're never going to get in these podcasts. You're never going to get it in the free content on the front page. So come enter the fray, become part of our community by hitting these different platforms and maybe winning a free subscription to THI. If you don't win it, it's only $8.33 a month for a 1-year subscription. So come on and come enter into our community and be one of our pals over at THI.
Absolutely, and we'll be happy to have you. We leave you nuggets, but behind this, subscription, a lot of good content, especially from you, AJ.
Everybody. And David Sisk, if you love Carolina basketball recruiting, good gosh, David Sisk is the best. His film reviews are the absolute best. Nobody does a better film review anywhere than David Sisk. So you can only access the full film review if you're a premium member. But let's dive into this very, very entertaining performance by the Tar Heels.
And this was a big game for UNC. And people can say, it's not a quad 1 game, but a chance to extend their winning streak to 4 games. And it beat Syracuse, you beat NC State at home and Virginia at home. But this was a real test, a place that UNC has struggled at times in the past against a lengthy Florida State team that we thought could potentially give UNC some problems. And they had an offensive explosion. Like I mentioned before, they shot better than 50% in both halves. 6 guys in double figures. 7 players made at least 3 field goals. They were just clicking on all cylinders. And it even took a while for RJ Davis to get in the score column, and he led the way with 20 points. Just all around a great game for the Tar Heels offensively, especially when we had a lot of question marks coming in. They seemed to, for the time being, check off some boxes for things we were looking for in a much bigger game than they had in the past 3 contests.
Man, there's 1,000 ways I can go right now. And we're talking about how good they were offensively in this game. And they had 26 points with 7 minutes left in the half. And in the last 27 minutes of the game, they scored 76 points in this building against a Leonard Hamilton team. A lot of people don't understand how good this program's been under Leonard. This is his 23rd year. He's retiring. He's got 1 more home game left. I was talking to somebody in the program I've known for a long time earlier today when I came over here to pick up my credentials, and we're just talking about how he was robbed in 2020.
Absolutely,
they were the best team in the country.
In my opinion,
they were the best team in the country. They would have been my pick to win the whole thing. This guy's going to be in the Hall of Fame. You get a number 2 seed at Miami, a number 2 seed, 1 seed at Florida State. That's doing it because look at what those programs were. This is a very well-coached program. It's a well-coached team. They're the 4th longest team in college basketball, 2nd longest team in the ACC. They're physical, and the numbers reflect that they still defend. They have trouble scoring in spurts sometimes, and they have bad stretches sometimes, but they still defend. And the Tar Heels were outstanding. Everybody contributed. Everybody that got into the game contributed, and they look comfortable contributing. My goodness, Cade Tyson, We haven't seen – you have to go back to Belmont to see him looking this confident. And it's not just confident with the ball. It's how confident he looks off the ball. It's how confident he looks setting a screen and just body language and having eye communication. His teammates are passing him the ball. He, to me, is a perfect example of this. How long Hubert now stays with guys in the game instead of rolling them out there every 4 minutes because they're playing well. And what's amazing is he's got guys on the bench for lengthy stretches, and then they come in like Seth Trimble, and they play very, very well. Ian Jackson didn't play the last 11 minutes of this game. So RJ doesn't score the first 12 minutes or first.
It was at least that was the first half of the first half.
Yeah, he had 2 free throws, and I think he finally scored about 8 minutes left in the half from the field. Hit a 3, and Ian doesn't play the last 11 minutes, so his team scores 96 points. Think about that. There's and a lot of assists. Elliot Cadeau played very well tonight. Had a couple of questionable drives earlier, but I think he just got to take that with his game. 7 assists, 3 turnovers. I think Hubert will stick that in his back pocket and take it the rest of the year. And Elliott hit a couple threes, very confident-looking threes. One of them, a kick out from Jay Wash, who rebounded a missed Elliott shot in the lane, came one-handed, it came down, was able to get his balance, saw Elliott over there in the corner, flipped it out to him, and Elliott just calmly sank a catch-and-shoot 3. How many catch-and-shoot 3s has Elliott Cadeau had as a North Carolina Tar Heel? They're usually off the dribble. So when you're getting catch-and-shoot 3s on kickouts after Jay Wash muscles a rebound, different things are happening. So we said in the pods that you and I have done recently, and Jacob and I, that this was a changing team. Change doesn't happen overnight. Change is a process. And to me, the most obvious example of the change of this team, and there are many, in terms of them playing like they should, is the fact they've been so good offensively. They've shot 50% or better 6 of the last 7 halves. This team should have been good offensively all along. They weren't. Part of it were some mistakes that Hubert was making with personnel, but he didn't have a lot of confidence in a lot of guys. That's why he was pulling them out sooner. I asked him about that tonight, and he totally agreed. You can run with Cade Tyson in a 7-minute stretch because Cade's producing. He can run with whoever in a lengthy stretch because they're producing. So it makes him look better as a coach, but also the cohesiveness on the court. Guys have a chance to sweat. They have a chance to have their game sort of channel up from the toes on up to mushroom out, and we've seen that. And you think about it, in the 4 games before this last 4-game stretch, they averaged 66.5 points. Pitiful.
I mean, scoring 70 seemed like it was as hard as scoring 100 at that point.
Well, I wasn't intentionally crushing them with ugly stats in a bunch of notes. I was crushing them because the numbers were there. I mean, that's my job. Numbers don't lie. Well, in the last 4, they're averaging 90.5 points. I asked RJ after the game tonight that it took you a while to get going. He had actually mentioned it took you a while to get going, and you guys were still doing okay. Then you had 2 games at home this past week where you blew out opponents and you didn't do a whole lot offensively. You didn't shoot very well. What does that say about this team? And he said, well, one thing it does is it relieves pressure from him. He had 7 assists, I think, tonight, 6 assists, something like that. It relieves pressure from him. He's able to play in the flow. He's able to make that extra pass, swing the ball more instead of feeling like I've got to score because we need to score. Now, he still takes his RJ shots, but again, like you're going to have to deal with a couple of Elliott drives and Ian Jackson drives, you're going to have to deal with some of those RJ shots because it's part of his game. It's just who he is. It's like a power hitter's going to strike out every once in a while. You accept that because he's going to knock the thing out of the damn park every once in a while, and that's what you need. So RJ did knock it out of the park. I thought he was exceptional in a floor game. Even defensively, he had a block shot. The last 2 road games, he has a block shot. He had one at Syracuse. He was defending the post. He got caught in a switch right in front of us. Our seats were right over there. And he was defending a post. And, when you do denial defense, if you ever play basketball, especially down low, you've got to have a little body on some of it. It's the right hand, it's the left shoulder. It's the right hand. If it's the left hand, it's the right shoulder a little bit. RJ had his whole body and hip into the guy. and the entry came in and it was deflected. Like RJ didn't touch it, but the offensive player deflected. He couldn't get a good grip because RJ was banging himself. So RJ's invested in doing all those little things, and 20 points. His team wins when he scores 20. They need him to be that, and if he's scoring 20, and the other guys are gelling and playing well, and they're connected on the court, you score 96 in Tucker Center against a Leonard Hamilton coach team. Not many clubs in the country can come in here and score 96. Not many can do that. This club did it, and they look like an NCAA tournament team doing it. And it's one thing to do it against Syracuse, stinks. It's one thing to do it, although it was at the Carrier Dome, or whatever they're calling it now, the wireless that doesn't work dome. And it's another thing to do it against NC State, which didn't show up. And it's another thing to do it against those poor kids from Virginia whose coach screwed them back in October, and they're just playing through the season. It's different here. This is a legendary coach, a Hall of Famer, who's got 2 home games left. This was one of them. And North Carolina was here. And it wasn't a great crowd, but it filled up mostly after a while. And when the Noles got going and built a lead in the first half, the crowd was really getting into it. It was a true road game. They did it again in the second half. It was a true road game. And the Tar Heels each time pushed back. And they did it for a lot of reasons, but also because they scored. So when the grit things and the intangible things were executed, they were able to finish it up by putting the ball in the basket. So they didn't do that before. There were times they actually played pretty gritty, couldn't get the ball in the basket. You got to finish the job, get the ball in the basket. I know this is probably my longest speech ever in one of these 3 things because there's so many things to hit on. But to me, that's why they won this game, and we can probably hit 15 things in this game why they won. But that to me is why, because 96 points here is 96 points here. Doesn't happen very often. It's the second most they've ever scored in this building. And when they did it before, it was against a really horrible FSU team.
And you mentioned the 96 points and putting the ball in the basket. I mean, that seems to solve a lot of problems, but most importantly for UNC, when they weren't putting the ball in the basket on the first shot, they were getting the offensive rebound and scoring after that. 24 points, so a fourth of their points came off offensive rebounds. So they had 24 second chance points. And you mentioned before we came on here that was their most UNC's had since a national title game in 2022. And they, on both ends of the floor, just against a lengthy Florida State team, just dominated on the boards. And it allowed them to, like I said, score second chance points. And even Cade Tyson had 2 putbacks where you don't really see him, bang around down low and really muscle his way back up to the basket. He did it on 2 different occasions, and it happened for all the Tar Heels. I mean, they out-rebounded Florida State 35-21, had 13 offensive rebounds. So if you look at that, 13 offensive rebounds, 24 points, I'd say they take that any day of the week. And like I said, they did that not only on the road against a Florida State team that's hungry to get a win for Leonard Hamilton, and a lengthy team that could have caused them trouble on either offensive end or defensive end on the glass.
Yeah, there's a million places to go with this. I'll start with Cade because he had a putback, which I think was his first basket. He flexed afterward. It's February 24th, and Cade Tyson is flexing in Tallahassee. Man, this is a strange season. And it got really strange tonight. 3 of the 5 players we talked to tonight were Jay Wash, Jay Witt, and Cade Tyson.
3 guys for a long time.
Just who would have thought that just a few weeks ago? As much as the offense has been impressive, this 3 straight games that they have out-rebounded their opponents by at least 14 in ACC play, it's only happened 2 other times in Carolina history that we know of. Steve Kirshner, the media relations director for Carolina basketball, who is a stat guru, sent us a text afterwards saying, as far as they know, they've confirmed going back to 1960, it's only happened 3 times where UNC has out-rebounded 3 straight ACC foes by 14 or more. It was 1991, team that went to the Final Four. Hubert was a junior. And 2011, a team that went to the Elite 8 and set up a club the next year that was as good as anybody in college basketball. They had the Kendall Marshall injury team. And then this one has no business being lumped in with those 2, right?
Especially with the lack of height we talked about. We played all the
especially against Virginia in a low possession team. So you get plus 14 in a low possession game is outrageous. NC State, I guess you can sell, especially since State just didn't come to play that night. Well, here, to do it here against these guys, wow, that's otherworldly for this team.
I mean, every Florida State team has a 7-foot center. It seems like they're always lengthy, always have been.
Former players are here all over the place tonight. By the way, Peter Warwick was here. Charlie Ward, even football guys. I'll tell a funny Peter Warwick, Carl Torber story some other time. It's a fantastic story. But anyway, I told them on press row tonight. They liked it. So I don't want to divert or veer off too much here. There are a ton of former Florida State basketball players here that played for Leonard, and I'm walking through a bunch of them, and I don't have any idea where the tops of their heads are. He'd been bringing in 7-footers for 2+ decades here, and the Tar Heels dominated them on the glass. Florida State didn't get an offensive rebound until 15 minutes left in the game. Carolina, Virginia had 5 first half rebounds. I think Florida State had 7, 8. That was utter domination. And what it is, Hubert's messaging to his team in this particular case has been totally validated and vindicated, because he has said all along, when we ask him about rebounding, a lot of times Hubert is kind of trite. He goes to his can. He's got this big can here, and inside of it, there's about 12 slots of Hubert responses. And when we ask him questions, he looks in there and he pulls one out. It's the same damn thing we've heard 50,000 times, right? Well, one of them that has always been a spot on and is probably one of the hardest things to convince a team is that it doesn't matter how big you are to be a great rebounder. Wes Unseld is one of the great rebounders of all time. I watched him growing up with the Bullets. He was 6'7". He could rebound, had the outlet pass, they got the break going. Seth Trimble's the leading rebounder on this team, and he's maybe 6'3". It's a matter of want. And what we've seen is the collective want with this group. So if you're dominating on the glass, that means you're also doing on the offensive glass, and you're giving yourself extra scoring opportunities. At 66.5 to 90.5, well, they have what I have to add up the second chance points from the last 3 games. 62 second chance points in the last 3 games. That's 21 points a game. If you take 21 off of 90.5, where are you? You're at 69.
Yeah, you're losing by double digits.
Offensively, but it directly correlates with the offensive glass. And generally speaking, if you can average a point per offensive rebound, you're doing okay. And that's something this team has not done very well under Hubert.
And they averaged almost 2 tonight. 2 points shy of averaging 2 per offensive rebound.
They also rebounded half of their own misses. It's the second straight game they've been at 50% or more grabbing their own misses. That's why you score 67.2% of the time. They average 1.5 points per possession tonight. And that happens not just because guys are hitting threes. That happens not just because they're converting in transition. You rebound to get in transition. So even if you're not great defensively, and they weren't great defensively tonight, they had stretches where they were really good. Mm-hmm. If you're doing those other things, you make it almost impossible for a team to beat you because they have to be almost perfect on offense.
They have little margin for error.
No margin for error. And whoever would have thought North Carolina would come here and dominate them on the glass, but they did. That comes from somewhere deep down. That message that has been repeated over and over and over again has finally sunk in, and they like it. I mean, these guys are flexing after rebounds now. They're gyrating after rebounds now. They're flexing when teammates are doing stuff. Seth Trimble over here had a bucket that he got a +1 on, and I thought I was typing and I'm looking up. Every once in a while I miss a play, and I look up and I see this from Vanal and Lubin. I thought, man, Lubin must have powered one up. No, it was Seth, and Lubin was flexing. It's just different, and we'll talk about that and what this means, but it's just different. Shows up on the glass. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't show up on the glass, this team is having to fight through a win.
Yep, scrapping to get wins. They were like a 1-point win at Notre Dame or a 2-point win at NC State that both games could have gone either way. And you can argue they probably should have lost one, if not both of those games.
You could also, Pat Welter asked Hubert a great question Saturday about, why did it take so long? And I'm going to say that it's a great question, and I do think things could have been done differently earlier that maybe would have led to this, or maybe not. I mean, I'm not the head coach, and I sure don't know anywhere near as much basketball as Hubert and the staff do. And maybe they understood that things had to wash out to get to this point, but they are where they are now. And there's a reason the season's 4.5 months. Now, what did Roy used to say? No one gets a crown. No one gets a trophy in November. You win the Maui Invitational, it's great, but you still got a whole season to play. So they still got 3 regular season games in the conference tournament. Suddenly they got 18 wins. Suddenly they've won 4 in a row. Suddenly they're scoring like crazy. Suddenly they're rebounding like crazy. Suddenly they're flexing. They're talking. Warm-ups again tonight. Go watch the stuff I put out there. We got a bunch of reels on Facebook. We got a bunch of shorts on YouTube. I'm putting that stuff out there so people who aren't here can get a sense of what it's like. I've been doing it for a long time, but now I think it's very valuable because all the talking that Hubert says he's seeing from this group and all the vitality that he sees away from game time is now showing up during game time more than ever before. 4 games is a pretty solid sample size. I'm not going to say this is who they are just yet because they got to keep doing it because we've seen too much bad North Carolina basketball this year. So 4 games isn't going to overshadow what we've seen before that. But man, they're going the right direction, and nothing illustrates a change from this team more than rebounding, and that has fed into the offense and made them pretty damn difficult to deal with.
Absolutely, and you mentioned just it's different, whether scoring it or you mentioned the rebounding, and that kind of leads us into our third point of what this means for UNC. They're not making the tournament, just based off these 4 wins, but it could give them a momentum they need to do that. And so, what does this mean for UNC moving forward?
It doesn't put them in the tournament, in my opinion. There's still too much to go. Too much can go wrong. And as I've said before, people got to stop looking at the fence so much right now. You got to be on the right side of the fence with a little margin for error, a little room there because of the upsets that are going to occur in some other conferences, and bids are going to get stolen. It happens every year. But what they've done is they've inserted themselves back in the conversation. Would you agree?
Oh, I absolutely agree.
We're in the conversation now. So when the Lenardis of the world and Field of 68 loves to put theirs out, everybody's got a bracket, right? We don't have a bracket, thank God. But everyone has a bracket, and they're in that conversation now. And they're playing really well. And Steve Kirshner, who said, yes, you can quote me on this, lamented pretty strongly was very critical of the net. The net doesn't gauge when teams get better. It doesn't gauge growth. Everything's baked in by Christmas, which is ridiculous. Now, it's not like North Carolina's been playing well for 6 weeks and not moving up because the league and stuff like that. It's a little too late to move up a ton in the net right now, unless the Tar Heels can beat Duke and make more noise in the conference tournament and have a chance to play Clemson and Louisville. But their improvement isn't going to be super reflected in the net, which is why the eye test matters. And quite frankly, with the laundry that they wear, people watch tonight. I had a buddy of mine text me when I was connecting on my flight in Charlotte this morning, a buddy who's a big he went to Penn State. He's a Penn State, Maryland guy. So he's conflicted when Maryland went to the Big Ten. And he said, I assume you're headed to FSU because that's a huge game tonight because these fence teams now play the biggest games. And Carolina squarely on the fence. The whole country's watching Carolina on the fence. And they saw a team that looks like an NCAA tournament team. And to me, being around them, it was 2 weeks ago tonight.
Yep, it was.
I told you they're done. I mean, Seth Trimble was this close to calling guys out by name, and Ariel Bynum asked him after the game tonight, said, you were close to calling guys out. You said guys weren't playing hard. They weren't invested. And Seth didn't walk away from it at all. He said, what he did say is, I'm not going to take responsibility for getting us turned around. But those words resonated because people heard them. Clearly, people heard them. And that's where they kind of had to have this, okay, let's dump all this crap on the table. Let's pick through it all, get rid of the bad stuff, and just keep the good stuff and see what we can do. And that's what they did. And 2 weeks ago tonight, Seth even said, it was funny, we stopped recording, and he had said 2 weeks ago tonight. I was like, damn, 2 weeks ago. He said it seems like 5. That's a great thing. Because they now feel like they've been playing well for a long time.
And they're so far removed from that. Yeah, it's from that game.
They're so far removed. That's a great point, Brian. You're so right. They're so far removed from the Clemson game. And 4 games has done it, 2 on the road. Now they got Miami. No excuse.
Nope.
Put them away. If this club has taken on the persona of the hockey fight, U.S. versus Canada, which we'll get into in a second. We'll talk more about in a drop. If they've taken on that personality, which what they say they have, then they will put Miami out of its misery by the under 8 timeout in the first half. Then they go to Blacksburg. No screwing around.
That's
no screwing around. You've got to build momentum and steam into Duke. Keep doing it because as I talked to Jalen Washington tonight. I said, you guys should check all these boxes. I said, but it seems like you guys can get so much better. How much better? I said, can you even see where you guys can go? Where the point of near peak for this team can be? And he said, no. And he said, that's what's so exciting is we're getting better and we keep discovering, I'm paraphrasing here, we keep discovering just how high that ceiling is. I don't think these kids saw a ceiling a long time ago. Thought about it. Maybe if they did, it was here and they didn't think much about it. But the fact that they're optimistically and with just cause discussing a very high ceiling, we can get so much better. And they're doing this in late February, given the way this season is gone, is all any Carolina fan can ask for at this point. So if they take care of business the next 2 games and do what they've done these last 3 especially, they set themselves up to at least go into the Duke game believing they can do something that night. Duke is awesome. But they're not infallible.
Caliber, or cutting the nets down caliber.
But they're not infallible. And I'm telling you, when this team is playing well offensively and they're playing with grit and an edge, they're pretty good. We thought all along they had a chance to be pretty good. Maybe better than pretty good. We don't know if they're there yet. We don't even know if they're on track to being there. I think the telltale will be March 8th, but they've got to build up to March 8th. So what this means is they got themselves back in the conversation. They feel so much better about themselves. Everybody's confident right now on the team. I mean, Hubert even went out of his way to point out Ty Club, which curiously at 6'7" was in the middle of the zone tonight. Zone did not work. I thought he stuck with the zone too long, but they won the game, so maybe he didn't. Who knows? Maybe FSU would have gone on a run if he wasn't in the zone. We never know. But he even went out of his way to point out Ty Claude tonight. So everything you're doing is building toward playing very important games that could determine whether or not they play in the NCAA tournament. And to be honest with you, Bryant, whether or not they avoid Dayton. A lot of Carolina fans have sort of accepted the fact, well, if we, and I'm speaking for them, if we get in, we're going to have to go to Dayton, and then they'll send us out to Spokane and all that. You could avoid Dayton. There are things in front of this team they can do that will avoid Dayton.
Yep.
Nobody wants to go to Dayton. I love Dayton's arena. I've covered games there before. It's fantastic. But I don't want to go to Dayton. So I need this team to either make the tournament, not go to Dayton, or not make the tournament, right? I don't want to go to Dayton. Sorry. Don't want to go. And they don't want to go to Dayton either. But right now, I think the one game at a time mentality that they've embraced, I think that Hubert is pushing the right buttons right now. And I actually think that he's not overcoaching this group because he's leaving guys in. He's kind of letting them play. He would, even with a bucket, he pulled Cade kind of early the other day after a bucket. He'd let him play because he was helping him in some of the other areas. I thought it was a really strong move by Hubert in the second half, that when Lubin and Jay Wash both picked up their 4th fouls quickly with plenty of time left, he didn't go kind of small with Drake at the 4. He put Tyson at the 4. He sent a message to Cade Tyson. I believe in you. Whatever's happened up to this point in the season, none of that matters. The who cares line the other day might become a t-shirt for this team because none of that matters if you do it now.
Yep.
And Cade gave him good minutes. He was solid defensively. I joked with him afterward. I said, you smacking a couple of rebounds. You got a tip out that led to a fast break basket, and they didn't give him a rebound on it. So you got to talk to Steve to get the ACC to give you a rebound on that. And you know what he said? I care about 96 to 85. Here's a guy everybody thinks his figures is going to transfer. Some people are saying in December he should just leave now so he can start playing in the middle of the year, next year somewhere, all that. And he gets a chance, and instead of this, 96-85. I don't care if I get that rebound, 96-85. So what this means is that everything I've just said, if you're a Carolina fan and you were down in the dumps 2 weeks ago, which you should have been, you should be pretty happy right now because they've given you a reason to watch the games with a little bit of optimism.
Absolutely. And it's a complete 180. And I want to close out with you mentioning the Duke game, March 8th. That's the kind of the barometer of where they're at. They can't win that game today. They could tomorrow,
No.
but they can take the necessary steps against Miami and against Virginia Tech that put them in the best position possible to win that game when the time comes. And
they would stay if they don't make these steps to validate your point, which is a great point. They don't make those. They don't win that game, or they're not in position to win that game without taking these steps. So, if they didn't, if they would have lost tonight, they would have looked just like they did so often. The Duke game would have been damn near a waste of time because they get bludgeoned, and they still may get clobbered. Duke's awesome, but North Carolina is ascending at a pretty rapid rate right now. So let's see what they do when they're supposed to dominate a team like Saturday against Miami and like up in Blacksburg. Who knows what the crowd will be. Usually it's great when Carolina goes in there, but I don't think those fans are too excited right now, just like these weren't. This is the worst environment I've seen here when Carolina comes in. So they might be fortunate enough to get the worst environment I've seen when they've gone to Castle, when they go up there next week too. Okay, make it work for you. Don't worry about them. Just get better. So we'll see.
Absolutely. And that next step, Saturday afternoon at noon against Miami in the Smith Center. You'll be there. I'll be there. But before we go, I want to remind everyone you have a chance to earn free THI. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube, like us on and follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, X, however you prefer to call it. We're more than happy to have you. And like our videos, comment. We want to hear from you with these comments on. We love feedback.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Happy to engage with you guys in any conversation.
I go on my phone. Hold on a second here. You see all that? Those are all YouTube comments, and I've really enjoyed it because there's so many smart Carolina fans. I've really shame on me for not doing it a long time ago, but kudos to my beautiful daughter for talking me into it. I've really enjoyed it. There's a lot of smart Carolina fans out there, and I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of a lot of them in those comments underneath the different videos. So I've enjoyed it. So keep commenting. It's fun.
Absolutely. Want to hear from you. I want feedback from you as well. We're always looking forward to that, which we have a chance to do on Saturday when UNC plays Miami inside the Smith Center at noon. For now, I'm Bryant. He's AJ.
Thanks.